Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us this evening for this fireside chat. I hope to take an opportunity here to catch you up on some of the things that are going on at Suny New Paltz, and then I'll respond to questions that you may have. A few have come in here already, and we'll try to respond to them until about 5:30. And I will say I really appreciate your continued interest and connection to Suny New Paltz, your alma mater for alumni, and I know others are joining us here this evening as well. Well, we made it to the Thanksgiving break without a major outbreak in COVID-19, and that feels like a real accomplishment. There was some skepticism that we would be able to do that. We kept the pandemic under control here on campus, and that was due to a lot of reasons. But one of the primary reasons was the dedication of our students to community health and safety and mutual respect. We had a We Not Me campaign, and our students embraced that and wore masks, socially distanced, avoided large gatherings, and that let us reach that planned break at Thanksgiving time. We wrapped up the semester after Thanksgiving with final exams remotely, and so we're breathing a bit of a sigh of relief, even as we look forward to the spring semester and know that we'll still be dealing with COVID-19 at the time. I could go on and on and on about all the things that we did and planned and that people worked on to make this a successful semester. And you may have some questions about some of those things, but I'm so impressed with the dedication, not only of our students, but of our employees, teaching faculty, professionals, classified staff, many of whom worked remotely, telecommuting. Some had to come to campus to do their jobs. They did so very safely, and we're quite relieved and positive about that. We had this fall a mix of about 25% of our courses being face-to-face, 75% remote. We're planning about the same mix for the spring semester. We reduced density on campus, about half the typical capacity of the residence hall. All of our face-to-face classes were offered at low density, masking required, and we have zero evidence of any in-class transmission of COVID-19. We put in place some very dedicated and clear testing and tracing protocols. I can describe those in more detail if people have questions about them. I know one of the things that people are interested in is how our students fared during this period. And it's clear it was not a normal semester, but we have to say that it went better than I think many people expected that it would. One of our faculty, his scholarship is on the academic success and dedication of students to their work, and he's surveyed new students, both new first year and new transfer students, every year for a number of years, did so this fall and was able to compare the results with previous years. He found slightly more stress and less motivation among students and quite a bit less satisfaction with their social experience. But the differences were not as dramatic as we might have feared they would be. And so there's no sense that from his results, that there was a crisis in motivation or stress. The modest drops in the quality of the experience have not impacted students' generally positive feelings about SUNY New Paltz or their commitment to staying here or coming back in the spring. And all things considered, that's very good news. One of the key pieces of that is that students living on campus are enjoying the social part of life despite the social distancing requirements, and that's also a success story. One of the surprising outcomes of his findings in light of national discussion is that our new underrepresented students' experience doesn't differ substantially from that of majority students on any dimension. Our plan for spring semester is currently under review by SUNY leadership. We're planning about the same mix of face-to-face and remote instruction as here in the fall. Of course, the same expectations for mask wearing, social distancing, avoiding large gatherings. SUNY has put in place requirements and expectations for quarantining and testing before and upon arrival to campus, and we will, of course, abide by and support those expectations. One of the SUNY requirements is that we not allow a spring break. That's disappointed some students. We are providing 3 mind, body, spirit days midweek, different weeks in the semester, to give students and professors a break from the hard work of the semester. Of course, we understand, and SUNY leaders have been very clear, that the course of the pandemic is not clearly predictable, and we may need to pivot to a different plan. One piece that is in place for the start of the spring semester is that, with just a few exceptions, prior to February 1, all instruction will be remote, and then we will pivot to some of the face-to-face classes on February 1. I'll comment briefly about enrollment and tuition revenue. Our enrollment this fall is down only 5% from the previous year, which is a good sign. We're heavily tuition dependent. About 80% of our campus revenue comes from tuition and fees. So we're very attuned to that. Our winter session enrollments, winter session is all online, are actually ahead of last year, which is also a good sign. And we're slowly catching up with spring 2019 registration. I'll comment briefly here about some of our anti-racism initiatives. We held the 4th in our anti-racism town hall series on November 12. We titled that Dismantling Racism, Checking In Post-Election. This was an opportunity for students, faculty and staff, and alumni to reflect on our world in the days after the election. That session was led by alumna Camille Jacobs, class of 1991, who's an expert in restorative justice, and she brought those perspectives into that forum, which was very productive, and it's a series that we intend to continue in the spring. Some of the anti-racism initiatives that we put in place include establishing our bias response network, which is up and running. Faculty are working on curriculum innovation to be able to respond to some of the concerns that we've heard from students about clearer courses and pedagogy on the history of inequity and in racism in America. We're expanding our Diversity and Inclusion Council to include more members and closer connections between the institutional Diversity and Inclusion Council and councils within each of the schools. We've undertaken some lessons in restorative practices for the Diversity and Inclusion Council under the leadership of Camille Jacobs. And some of you may be aware that our University Police Department issued a very strong and clear commitment to be an anti-racist law enforcement organization. Some of our students have faced financial challenges. We're all aware of that the economic impacts of the pandemic have affected our students and their families. Since April, we distributed more than $75,000 from our Student Crisis Fund to support students who were facing financial challenges to continue their education. Deeply grateful to the alumni and many other supporters of the college who have contributed to that really important source of funds. A final comment that I'll make here is that I know that many of you have interacted with David Eaton, who's Vice President for Enrollment Management, and with Linda Eaton, Associate Vice President for Student Affairs, during their combined 65 years of distinguished service to SUNY New Paltz and to our students. They're retiring at the end of this month. They delayed their retirements by 6 months to provide continuity and stability as we planned for and then implemented a fall semester during the COVID-19 pandemic. And I'm deeply grateful for their continued contribution, not only during this fall, but during all of their many years here. So in recognition of each of their significant and longstanding contributions to the college and the caliber of our academic enrollment and student life achievements, I'll be presenting David and Linda each with the President's Medal, which is the highest award that the campus can bestow upon an individual. So I'll turn now to questions. I see we have some coming in here. Bear with me, please. Question here, what's the plan for spring and summer? I outlined very briefly our spring semester plan. There will be in-person classes the pandemic and Department of Health guidelines allowing. We're also planning for a summer session very parallel to that of the spring, with many of our courses remotely, as they have been the past several summers, but some in-class presence. Question, can you talk a little bit about coronavirus testing on campus? We put in place at the start of the semester surveillance testing, working with a Long Island-based company, Enzo Labs, which does PCR testing. That was very successful, allowed us to keep track of any cases that were developing on the campus and quarantine and isolate as rapidly as we could. We also put in place later on in the semester a program of pool saliva tests, where each of 10 or 12 people provide a saliva sample. Those are pooled, and the pool is tested at Upstate Medical in Syracuse. And if the pool comes back negative, we know that every individual who was part of that pool is negative. If the pool comes back positive, then the individual samples have been retained and can be tested, and we can determine which individual or individuals in that pool were positive, and we can proceed accordingly. So that's been a very, very effective way for us to test students and employees during the summer or during the semester. We actually tested somewhere on the order of, we ran something on the order of 10,700 tests, a combination of PCR tests and pool saliva tests, and we had an overall positivity rate of 0.36%, which is extremely admirable given the positivity rate for testing across the state of New York. A question here, I saw the Chancellor came to visit regarding the COVID-19 testing on campus. Did he visit all the campuses? How are we doing compared to other schools? The Chancellor is very engaged. He's out and about a lot. He visited many campuses during the semester. Sometimes he would visit a campus that was having a challenge with managing COVID-19 to introduce new protocols or testing. In our case, he wanted to visit Suny New Paltz, I believe, because we were doing so well in our testing. Again, we think we did very well compared to at least some of the other campuses that had significant outbreaks and a need to pivot in an unexpected way to remote instruction during the semester. How are students and others holding up, and are they done for the semester? We extended the deadline for submission of final grades till this Friday, December 18. That was in response to a request from some faculty. Gave faculty and students a little bit of a breather as they finished up the semester. It's been a stressful time. Again, as I've shared, our students managed the stresses well. Faculty and professionals found the work that they were doing challenging in different ways. Teaching remotely, sometimes teaching remotely while caring for young children, especially for women faculty and professionals. Sometimes those faculty were teaching their own courses and perhaps caring for children and teaching their own kids in K through 12. So a lot of stress there. I spoke several weeks ago with an employee and asked that individual how things were going, and the response was, it's hard, but it's important work. And that's the kind of dedication that I think has brought us to this point of success in the semester. Question here, I saw something about a mental health initiative to support students during this time. Can you share a little bit about it? Our Institute for Disaster Mental Health has a lot of professional capability in training and helping individuals in communities navigate stressful circumstances, often in response to disasters. And they put in place, with the support of an alum and that alum's spouse, a program of psychological resilience. And some of our student ambassadors were trained in psychological resilience and worked with students during the semester. That was very helpful in helping our students both navigate particular crises, but also develop the skills to manage the stress of the semester in more effective ways. Will students get a P grade option on the spring semester? We've put in place an SU, satisfactory, unsatisfactory grade option for this fall that I anticipate will continue in the spring, but it's not a pass-fail option. This has been a topic of major conversation nationally. A lot of student interest and in some cases pressure to go with pass-fail grading options. We and a number of other campuses have been concerned about not taking steps that would diminish the credentials of our students relative to others, even during this pandemic time. Will tuition increase next year? Many colleges are freezing it. We don't know. Our tuition is recommended by the Board of Trustees and approved by the state legislature. I think there has been a little bit of interest in sitting tight until it's known better what the state budget will look like, whether there will be any federal relief. I do know that there's great sensitivity among SUNY leadership, as there is on all of our campuses, about the financial pinch that students and families have been feeling. So I would not be surprised if there's a tuition freeze, or if there is an increase, that it will be small to modest. Question here, how are you doing personally after such a tough semester? Trying to hold up well. It's been a challenge. I do get onto campus on occasion, but I miss seeing students. I miss interacting with colleagues, except on a computer screen or a Zoom or WebEx session. But generally, we've been moving the campus along well, and that's been rewarding. I will acknowledge that it's been a tough time for campus leaders, not just at New Paltz, but across the country. Oh, here's a nice message. I appreciate this. This is a kudo from someone who's joining here. I've been so impressed with the way New Paltz handled and is continuing to handle the pandemic. Thank you for your strong leadership, President Christian, and for keeping campus open and thriving. I work closely with students in my sorority still at New Paltz, and they feel supported this year. Thank you. We appreciate that feedback. And again, I appreciate that accolade, but I'm quick to share that this is a team effort, and there have been lots and lots of people at all kinds of different roles at the institution who have made that so successful. What is being done to help students get jobs and internships? Actually, a lot of work underway with Career Resource Center and other units, including some great successes in arranging telecommuting internships for some of our students. We hear from businesses in the New Paltz community how influential some of that work has been as they've been adjusting to a telecommuting or a remote way of doing business. Some of the special skills that our students have been very helpful in those internship roles. Obviously, that's been a challenge. Are sports being cut? We obviously canceled fall sports. Our student athletes have been very active and engaged in safe and socially distanced training to sharpen their skills, remain in touch with each other, and not totally lose that part of what enriches their campus experience. Our student athletic trainers have worked so closely with those student athletes. Many of our trainers have been redeployed to serve as contact tracers, and they've done a marvelous job at that. Just today, they were written up. That work was written up in the national higher ed press, praising that work and capturing the care with which those individuals approached that work. But they also were responsible for continuing to support student athletes so that they could remain in shape, remain engaged in their athletic activities, even under these challenging times. And I will say that spring sports are still a matter of discussion, and that remains a topic of conversation, both within the SUNY leadership and the UVC, the United Volleyball Conference, that our men's volleyball team is part of. Will there be a virtual graduation in December 2020? Obviously, that's not going to happen this fall. We're looking at right now planning spring commencement ceremonies for May 2021, including potential ceremonies not only for 2021 graduates but for 2020 graduates as well. And so that's in planning and in process. Not everyone feels the same way. What would you say to students who have had a really hard semester? Um, our message there has been keep the faith, recognize that you will have developed skills and abilities and tested yourselves in a way that previous cohorts and generations of students may not have. You'll be moving into a world of work that we know is going to involve much more telecommuting work than pre-pandemic, and you will have developed special skills to manage those. We recognize that studying and learning at home in many instances has been challenging. Studying and learning remotely from an apartment in New Paltz has been challenging. We encourage and we've tried to be frequent in communicating all of the forms of support that we have out there. We do encourage all of our students to take advantage of those resources for support. If you're running into challenges, raise your hand, ask for help. There's lots of it there, and we have some concern that some students have not tapped into those resources to the degree that they might. So, we recognize this is a tough time. We're trying to be supportive and provide those resources to help you be successful. This is a great question. How are art and theater students doing if they can't have typical in-person experiences? It's been really amazing to see the way that our art and theater and music students and faculty have been developing virtual programming, very creative programming that lets our students not only display their work, but develop some of these other skills with different media. I think people are learning that doing things remotely lets them reach new audiences that may not come to campus for an art exhibition or a theater performance. And I've been impressed, and I know the community has been impressed with the creativity and the great faculty leadership and student embrace that we've seen of some of those efforts. Some of our facilities, the Dorsky Museum has been open on a limited basis to members of the public, but we're very cautious about bringing visitors to campus in a way that would jeopardize either our students and members of our community, or heaven forbid, spread COVID-19 from our campus community to a broader community. Here's a question. Are there any new improvements for dining services for spring semester? I know there's been a lot of work underway. A couple of our student leaders undertook some analyses and surveyed students and have been working with Sodexo, our food service provider. And I don't know the details. I don't have a hand on that, but my understanding is that they've come up with some creative new meal plans and approaches that will serve students better under these particular circumstances. What would you say to new students looking to apply or attend next year? Our early planning for fall semester 2021, and I need something wood to knock on here, is to plan a pre-pandemic fall semester. We obviously don't know what the course of the pandemic will be. We don't know who will be able to be vaccinated prior to the start of the fall semester. But our planning right now is for a live on-campus presence at hopefully without the same array of social distancing and masking measures that we've had to use now. I'm sure that some of that will still be in place, but we think we'll be able to provide a much richer experience in fall 2021 than we were this fall. And we encourage students to consider, students and parents to consider the costs, the risks of not continuing your education as promptly as you might, and the dangers of being able to get back into it with a delay. So I would say keep heart, stay tuned, and we hope you'll explore all of the options available for us that we're providing for you for the fall semester. We will also no doubt be planning as in a switch from what we've done pre-pandemic, a somewhat richer array of online courses to accompany those face-to-face courses for students who may not feel fully safe coming to campus, or who may be working or needing to continue their education in a remote way. Any updates on the 50th anniversary of the Sojourner Truth Library and the Sculpture Commission's Sojourner Truth Walk to Freedom? Will there be any events in 2021 honoring Sojourner Truth? We've actually been in conversation with the sculptor who is developing that sculpture. It's moving along really, really well. We're optimistic that we will be able to keep that in play and have an installation and commemoration ceremony in fall of 2021. That's certainly our goal. We're still fundraising for that project, but that's also taking wing. Well, where is Hans, your puppy? How's he doing? Hans is probably in bed now. He sleeps a lot. It's approaching his dinner time. Actually, it's past his dinner time, so he'll probably be badgering at the door here shortly. But he's doing well. He's living the life of Riley here at home. Will you be expanding support for online education, both for faculty and students? Yes, this is one of the areas that we've been working on, partly under our own direction, but also in response to some of the expectations that Suny has outlined for improved training and orientation for faculty who are teaching remotely and online. This is one of the areas where we have some concern that students may not have been able to take advantage of all of the resources available. Our Office of Instructional Technology has developed a very clear and thoughtful orientation program for students to succeed in remote learning, understanding what some of the expectations are that differ from a face-to-face course, how to access the technology, how to take advantage of it and seek support to be successful, and some of the ways that professors will interact differently in an online course. So we think we'll be much better prepared to offer those experiences successfully in the future. Question here, will graduation for the spring be in person? We don't know. Again, we will abide by New York State and SUNY and Department of Health guidelines and restrictions there, including constraints on gathering size. But our commencement planning group is certainly including that as part of their planning, recognizing that we may not be able to do that, and we may have to have parallel plans that are developing so that we can pivot either to remote or live commencement, depending on the state of the pandemic in May. As a parent who has a daughter applying to New Paltz for fall 21, I'm thoroughly impressed with your meeting students on their level, especially through Instagram Live. Well, thank you. I appreciate that feedback. Communication is so important with current students, prospective students, parents, with alumni, all members of our campus community. It's important even under normal times. We think that under times of a pandemic, it's particularly critical. And so I appreciate that feedback. What do you believe makes New Paltz stand out from other colleges? I'm often asked by people what makes me most proud of being president, most proud as president at SUNY New Paltz. And my response typically is that it's the accomplishments of our students. And some of that is not just individual accomplishments, but communal and collective accomplishments that grow out of the strong sense of community that's so apparent for anyone who works with and at SUNY New Paltz. I have a series that I do in normal times. Hopefully, I can return to this in the fall, of Hot Chocolate with the President in the residence halls. And I meet with students and talk about things that are going on at the college, respond to their questions. And when student questions die down, I always ask, what do you like best about being a student at SUNY New Paltz? And one of the typical responses from students is the faculty, my professors, the care that they show for me, for my academic development, for my personal well-being. And our current provost, the chief academic officer, visited departments last year, again pre-pandemic, and asked faculty what they like best about being faculty at SUNY New Paltz. And the common response that she heard was, we like our students. So that, that chemistry of the mutual appreciation between students and faculty, as well as professionals, the advisors, the consultants, all of the professionals who do work to support our students make such a difference in that sense of community. So those are some of the things that I think are particularly outstanding about this institution. If vaccinations are made available to everyone equally by the fall, will it be mandated by the school to get vaccinated? That would be the kind of decision that I'm sure would be guided and directed by New York State and county health departments and by SUNY. So that's not one that I think would even be an option for campuses to decide on. Depression and anxiety are at a high rate among college students in the pandemic. Would you ever consider mandating mental health checkups and meetings for the students at school? Wow, it's always a balancing act how much we have resources available to support students when they need them. Mandating check-ins may be seen by some as being intrusive. So this is why we try to educate students about the resources and the support available, make that support available in the cleanest and most straightforward way that we can. For example, we heard from some students and alumni that they were troubled by the path of a student having a mental health situation after hours on an evening or on a weekend, and having the only path for them to seek help to call the University Police Department. So we listened to that, we heard the concern, and we put in place another path for students to be able to seek mental health support after hours. And that's, I think, an example of the kind of responsiveness without being intrusive that we can continue to provide for our students. Well, thank you for this comment. The faculty and staff at SUNY New Paltz is the absolute best. I'm currently at another institution for my master's degree, and let's just say I really miss the community at New Paltz. Wow, that's so nice to hear. That warms a president's heart. Thank you. Do you know when will early action decisions come out? I don't know. My impression, and I'm hesitant to venture a guess here, but my impression is that some of that correspondence is either in the works or has gone out recently. But don't hold me to that, please. Am I missing questions here? One is, what are the judicial actions for not getting COVID tested before going home for the semester? That's been such a complicated topic of discussion, and it's one that we have limited control over. We've spent a lot of time in the leadership team talking about the right way to do that without being overly punitive, but also creating the sort of expectation that these are serious expectations, and it have major health consequences of not abiding by the constitution, uh, the expectations. So that's a key piece that we've struggled with how to navigate the best way. What are some of the ways that alumni can get involved in New Paltz as alums, mentorship programs, etc.? Um, the alumni, be in touch with the alumni office. They are in a position to make connections between alumni and students. Certainly, stay in touch with your home department. There may be opportunities there for home departments to identify connections between current students and alumni. I know that students value the perspective that they receive from alumni who may have a different window on their experience 3 or 5 or 10 or 20 years out of school than students do immediately. Will classes be in person come fall 2021? Yes, again, our current plan, the pandemic willing, is to have a rich array of in-person courses offered in the fall is perhaps the primary mode of instruction. But as I've indicated, we do want to provide remote instruction for students who don't feel safe coming to campus over health concerns, or who for other reasons find the remote instruction beneficial as a way to either begin or continue their education. We're looking at programs, new programs. We have one that's in the approval process right now with Suny that would be an online program for helping people with a number of college credits complete a degree and doing so remotely while they're working, being able to be a part-time student. And so we're looking at ways to sustain and enrich our flavor and our tradition as a residential campus, but also expanding that outreach to other students who may not be in a position to come to campus. Here's a note from the alumni office. Additionally, for alumni, please join the Orange and Blue Network. And I'll give you a link here. www.NEWPALTZ network.org. And someone else helping me out here with feedback. Early action decisions are sent by U.S. mail by the first week of January, in response to one of the earlier questions. Have any capital projects been delayed because of COVID? Oh, yes. We had in place a plan to renovate the 2 remaining residence halls in the Peregrine, aka Hasbrook complex. And our plan there was to add an additional floor to each of those residence halls to expand our limited residence hall capacity. That obviously went by the wayside as a consequence of the financial impact of COVID-19 on our residence hall planning. We've been able to continue some capital projects. This past summer, as you may be aware, we completed a wonderful renovation of space in the passageway between the Haggerty Administration Building and the Student Union Building. That's a new and expanded facilities for the Scholars Mentorship Program that's been really well received. And our students are flocking there at low density in masks during the fall. We're renovating the lobbies in the lecture center. That's a project that's been able to continue, and we're replacing the roof on the Student Union Building, as well as some additional renovations in that building. So we've had a few projects that we've been able to continue. Some have been clearly put on hold. One that has been delayed is the contemplative space that was an outgrowth of our building renaming activity a few years ago. And the idea there was to create a space where we would provide educational and reflective material and opportunity for students and visitors to learn more about the complex history of European settlers, enslaved Africans, indigenous people, subsequent waves of immigrants to the U.S., and address some of the history that our renaming process illuminated in new ways. What do you look forward to during the holidays? My wife and I have a 10-month-old grandson. He has been with us for several weeks, he and his parents, and they will be here. And so getting to know little Emilio has been a lot of fun. We're also getting together with our son and his partner, who have been socially distanced and very careful. So we're looking forward to some family time, maybe catching up on some reading that's been tough to keep up with during work times, and just generally a change of pace, and maybe not having any Zoom or WebEx sessions for a week or so. Let me see if I've missed any in here. What kind of resources are you providing for international students who are essentially stuck in the US and can't get home? My impression is that there are not many who are in that position. The bigger concern we have about international students are students who have been accepted, admitted, want to come here to New Paltz, and are stuck in their home countries, typically for visa reasons. And that's our bigger concern about international programs. And we're hoping that that dynamic will change in the very near future, because we miss those students and all that they bring to our campus. We're at 5:28. The questions have died. I am aware of the old adage that time is our one truly non-renewable resource. So I again want to thank everyone for joining us here this evening, and for all of our alumni and other supporters. We're so grateful for your continued engagement with and support for the college, and for current and future generations of students. I want to wish everyone a safe and restful holiday. Be well, be safe during these tenuous times of the continuing COVID-19 uptick. So be well and be safe, and best wishes for the new year. May 2021 be better for all of us than 2020 was. Thank you.